The tray shook in Elena's hands as the glass tipped and shattered against the tile floor. Every head in the diner turned. She froze, her heart pounding, as cold coffee spread across the floor like a slow, accusing river. From the corner booth, laughter erupted, sharp and mocking, cutting through the sudden silence. "Careful there, sweetheart," a deep voice called out. "Some of us actually enjoy our coffee in the cup." Elena's cheeks burned, but she lifted her chin and turned toward the voice. A tall man sat sprawled across the booth like he owned the place, dark hair falling over his forehead, a smirk playing on his lips. Around him sat 3 other men, all watching her with the same amused expression, waiting to see if she would crumble. She had seen his kind before. Men who walked into her small diner in expensive jackets, ordered black coffee they barely touched, and left before finishing their meal, tossing money onto the table like it meant nothing. Men who thought a tip excused cruelty. "I'll clean it up," Elena said evenly, bending down to gather the broken pieces. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from anger held tightly in check. "Guess minimum wage doesn't come with better coordination," another man at the table added, and the group laughed again. Elena stood, glass shards cradled carefully in a napkin, and looked directly at the man who had spoken first. Something about his confidence, the way he leaned back as if the whole diner existed for his entertainment, made her blood boil. "Funny," she said, voice steady. "I didn't realize insulting waitresses was a hobby for men who can't even finish their own coffee." The table went quiet. The man blinked, clearly not expecting a response. Then, slowly, a genuine smile spread across his face, different from the mocking one before, something almost impressed. "She's got teeth," he murmured to his friends, who exchanged uneasy glances. Elena didn't wait for a reply. She turned on her heel and walked toward the kitchen, dumping the broken glass into the trash bin with more force than necessary. Her manager, Mr. Hollis, an older man with kind eyes and a permanent worry line on his forehead, met her by the door. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I'm fine," Elena said, though her hands were still shaking slightly. "Just some rude customers." Mr. Hollis glanced past her toward the booth where the 4 men sat. His face tightened. "Those are Blackwood men," he said in a low voice. "Best to keep your head down around them, Elena. They're not the kind of trouble this town needs." Elena frowned. She had heard whispers about Blackwood, a name that seemed to carry weight in this small town, though she had never understood why. People spoke of the Blackwood estate on the hill with a mixture of respect and fear, but no one ever explained the details. She assumed it was some wealthy family with too much influence and too little manners. "Trouble or not," Elena said, grabbing a fresh rag to wipe down a nearby table. "I'm not going to let anyone talk down to me in my own workplace." Mr. Hollis sighed but said nothing more, returning to the register with a worried shake of his head. The dinner rush continued, and Elena forced herself to focus on other tables, refilling coffee cups, taking orders, delivering plates of pancakes and eggs to sleepy truckers and tired families. But she felt his eyes on her more than once. That same booth in the corner, the dark-haired man watching her with an expression she couldn't quite place. Curiosity, maybe, or something else entirely. When the group finally rose to leave, nearly 2 hours later, Elena busied herself at the far end of the counter, hoping to avoid another confrontation. But the man broke away from his friends and walked directly toward her, footsteps unhurried, confident in a way that made the other customers instinctively lower their voices. "You have a name?" he asked, leaning against the counter. "Why do you want to know?" Elena replied, not looking up from the cup she was drying. "Because most people don't talk to me the way you just did," he said. "I find that interesting." "Maybe most people are just smarter than me," Elena said dryly, finally meeting his gaze. Up close, his eyes were a striking shade of gray, sharp and calculating, like he was reading her thoughts before she spoke them. "Or maybe," he said, a slow smile forming, "you're the only one honest enough to say what everyone else is thinking." Elena set the cup down harder than necessary. "Look, I don't know who you think you are, but around here, we don't get special treatment just because you can afford a nice jacket." His smile widened, unbothered by her sharp tone. "Damon," he said simply, extending a hand she didn't take. "Damon Cole." Elena crossed her arms. "Well, Damon Cole, unless you're ordering something, I have other tables to attend to." He studied her for a long moment, something unreadable passing behind his gray eyes, before he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded bill, placing it on the counter without breaking eye contact. "Keep the change," he said, turning to leave. Then, almost as an afterthought, he glanced back over his shoulder. "You should be more careful about who you mock, Elena." Her name. He had somehow learned her name, though she hadn't given it to him. A chill ran down her spine, though she refused to let it show. She watched him walk out the door, rejoining his friends outside, their laughter fading into the parking lot as they climbed into a black car that looked far too expensive for a small town like this. Elena picked up the bill he had left and unfolded it, expecting a generous tip. Instead, she found a torn napkin tucked inside the bill, words scrawled across it in sharp, confident handwriting. "Know your place." Her hands tightened around the napkin, crushing it into a tight ball. Anger flared hot in her chest, chasing away the strange unease his parting words had left behind. She shoved the crumpled napkin into her apron pocket and returned to work, refusing to let the encounter rattle her further. But that night, walking home under the dim glow of streetlights, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The way Damon had looked at her, the casual mention of her name he shouldn't have known, the strange warning left behind on a torn napkin. None of it made sense, and yet all of it left her uneasy, in a way she couldn't quite explain. She passed by the edge of town, where the road curved toward the hills, and paused for a moment, staring up at the distant lights of the Blackwood estate, glowing faintly against the night sky. The place always seemed too quiet, too isolated, wrapped in rumors that no one in town dared to confirm or deny. A cold breeze rustled through the trees lining the road, and for a brief moment, Elena thought she heard something else beneath it. A low sound, almost like a growl, carried faintly on the wind. She turned quickly, scanning the shadows along the tree line, but saw nothing, except darkness and swaying branches. Shaking off the unsettling feeling, she quickened her pace toward home, telling herself it was nothing more than her tired mind playing tricks after a long, stressful shift. She had more important things to worry about than rich strangers with strange warnings and unexplained knowledge of her name. Her mother was waiting when she arrived home, sitting in the dim living room with a blanket draped over her thin shoulders, coughing softly into a tissue. Elena's chest tightened at the sight, worry replacing the earlier anger and unease. "You're home late," her mother said, voice weak but warm. "Busy night," Elena replied, forcing a smile as she helped her mother settle more comfortably into the chair. "How are you feeling?" "Better," her mother lied, and they both knew it. The illness had been draining her for months, medical bills piling higher than Elena's paycheck could handle, forcing her to take extra shifts just to keep up. Elena made her mother tea, sat with her for a while, discussing simple things, the weather, a show they used to watch together, anything to distract from the heavy reality pressing down on their small household. Eventually, her mother drifted off to sleep, and Elena retreated to her own room, exhaustion finally catching up with her. She pulled the crumpled napkin from her apron pocket, smoothing it out on her nightstand, studying the sharp handwriting once more. "Know your place." The words felt less like a threat now, and more like a challenge, one she had no intention of backing down from. Whoever Damon Cole thought he was, whatever strange influence his family held over this town, Elena refused to be intimidated. She had faced harder things than a smug stranger with expensive clothes and a mocking smile. She had faced illness, poverty, long nights of worry over her mother's health, and she had survived all of it with her spirit intact. If Damon Cole wanted to test her, she would meet that test head-on, without flinching, without backing down, exactly the way she always had. She fell asleep with the napkin still on her nightstand, and dreamed, strangely, of gray eyes watching her from the shadows, patient and calculating, waiting for her to notice something she wasn't yet ready to see. Morning came too quickly, sunlight spilling through her thin curtains, and Elena dragged herself out of bed, already dreading the return to the diner. But beneath the exhaustion, a small flicker of stubborn determination burned bright, refusing to let the previous night's strange encounter shake her resolve. Whatever game Damon Cole thought he was playing, Elena intended to make it clear, in no uncertain terms, that she wasn't someone easily controlled or intimidated. She dressed quickly, grabbed her apron, and headed out the door, the crumpled napkin, now tucked safely into her pocket, a quiet reminder of the challenge she intended to answer. Little did she know, across town, in the grand and shadowed halls of the Blackwood estate, Damon Cole sat by a window, turning a phone over in his hands, replaying the sharp confidence in Elena's voice, the fire in her eyes when she refused to back down. A slow, thoughtful smile crossed his face, one that had nothing to do with mockery, and everything to do with genuine intrigue. For the first time in longer than he cared to admit, Damon Cole had found something unexpected, someone unafraid. And he intended to see exactly how far that fearlessness would carry her, before the truth of who he really was came crashing into her ordinary little life, changing everything she thought she knew about the world around her. 3 days passed before Damon Cole walked through the diner doors again, and this time, Elena was ready. She saw him the moment the bell above the door chimed, his tall frame filling the entrance, dark jacket replaced with a simple gray sweater that somehow still looked expensive. He was alone this time, no friends trailing behind him, no audience to perform for. Elena kept her expression neutral, grabbing a menu and approaching his table with the same professionalism she offered every customer, though her pulse quickened slightly at the memory of his parting words from days before. "Table for one?" she asked, voice flat. "Actually," Damon said, settling into the booth by the window, "I was hoping you'd be my server again. Consider it a personal request." "Lucky me," Elena replied dryly, setting the menu in front of him. "What can I get you?" "Surprise me," he said, leaning back with that same infuriating confidence from before. Elena arched an eyebrow. "I don't do surprises for customers who leave threatening notes." Something flickered across his face, quick and unreadable, before the confident mask returned. "It wasn't a threat," he said smoothly, "more of a friendly warning." "Funny way of being friendly," Elena shot back, crossing her arms. "Most people say hello first." Damon chuckled, a low sound that seemed to genuinely surprise him, as if he hadn't laughed like that in a long time. "You really don't back down, do you?" "Not when someone's rude to me in my own workplace," Elena said. "Now, are you actually ordering something, or just here to waste my time again?" "Coffee," he said, "black. And whatever you'd recommend that isn't likely to end up on the floor this time." Elena's jaw tightened at the jab, but she refused to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. "Pancakes," she said curtly. "Best in town. Coming right up." She turned and walked toward the kitchen, feeling his eyes following her the entire way, though she resisted the urge to look back. Mr. Hollis met her by the coffee machine, his expression tight with concern. "He's back," her manager said quietly. "I noticed," Elena replied, pouring a fresh cup of coffee. "Elena, I'm serious. Be careful with him. The Blackwood family isn't like other families in this town. There are things about them people don't talk about, not because they're being polite, but because they're afraid." Elena frowned, curiosity mixing with unease. Afraid of what exactly? Mr. Hollis glanced around the diner, lowering his voice further. "I don't know the details. Nobody does, not for certain. But strange things happen around that family. Disappearances, accidents. People who cross them tend to regret it." The warning settled heavily in Elena's chest, but she pushed it aside, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. She had dealt with difficult people before, and Damon Cole, despite his strange wealth and stranger warnings, was still just a person. She carried the coffee back to his table, setting it down without ceremony. "Pancakes will be out shortly," she said. "Thank you," Damon said, and for a moment, his tone lost its usual mockery, sounding almost genuine. Elena studied him for a brief second, trying to reconcile the arrogant man from days before, with this quieter version, sitting across from her now. "You're different today," she observed before she could stop herself. Damon's gray eyes met hers, something thoughtful passing behind them. "Maybe I'm curious about someone who isn't afraid of me." "Should I be afraid of you?" Elena asked, tilting her head slightly, testing the boundaries of the strange conversation. "Most people are," he said simply, no arrogance in his tone, just a quiet statement of fact. "Well, I'm not most people," Elena replied, turning to leave before he could respond. The pancakes arrived a few minutes later, and Damon ate quietly, watching Elena move between tables with an intensity that made her increasingly aware of his presence throughout her shift. Every time she passed his booth, she felt his eyes on her, though he made no further attempts at conversation, seemingly content to simply observe. When he finally rose to leave, he approached the counter where Elena stood cashing out another customer. He waited patiently until she was free, then placed money on the counter, along with something else, a small folded piece of paper this time, instead of a crumpled napkin. "What's this?" Elena asked warily, eyeing the paper. "An apology," Damon said, for before. Elena unfolded the paper cautiously, half expecting another cryptic warning. Instead, she found a simple, handwritten note. "I was out of line. You didn't deserve that, Damon." She looked up at him, surprised by the unexpected sincerity. "That's it? No hidden threats this time?" "No hidden threats," he confirmed, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Just an apology, and maybe an invitation." "An invitation to what, exactly?" "Dinner," he said. "Not here. Somewhere nicer. I'd like to properly introduce myself, without the mockery this time." Elena crossed her arms, considering the offer with obvious skepticism. "Why would I agree to that? You've been nothing but rude since the moment we met." "Because," Damon said, stepping closer, his voice dropping lower, "you intrigue me more than anyone has in a long time, and I think, somewhere beneath that stubborn exterior, you're curious about me too." Elena hesitated, torn between her natural distrust and an undeniable curiosity about the strange, contradictory man standing before her. "I don't date customers," she finally said, though her tone lacked the conviction it should have carried. "Then don't think of it as a date," Damon replied smoothly. "Think of it as satisfying your curiosity about a family everyone in this town seems too afraid to discuss openly." That caught her attention, curiosity flickering brighter than caution for a brief moment. "You'd actually tell me about your family? About all these secrets everyone whispers about?" "Some of it," Damon said carefully. "Enough to satisfy your curiosity, at least." Elena studied him for a long moment, weighing the offer against every warning Mr. Hollis had given her, against every instinct telling her to stay far away from someone as complicated and dangerous as Damon Cole seemed to be. "Fine," she said finally, surprising herself as much as him, "but somewhere public. And you're paying, obviously." A genuine smile broke across Damon's face, brighter than any expression she had seen from him before. "Obviously," he agreed. "I'll pick you up Friday evening." "I'll meet you there," Elena corrected firmly. "I don't need anyone picking me up." Damon chuckled, clearly amused by her continued insistence on independence. "Understood. Friday then. 7 o'clock. He left shortly after, and Elena stood by the counter for a long moment, staring at the note still clutched in her hand, wondering exactly what she had just agreed to. Mr. Hollis appeared beside her, glancing curiously at the paper. "What was that about?" he asked. "Dinner," Elena admitted. "Friday." Mr. Hollis's eyebrows shot up in surprise, concern flooding his features once more. "Elena, I really think you should reconsider. There's something not right about that family, something dangerous." "I appreciate the concern," Elena said, folding the note carefully and slipping it into her apron pocket. "But I can handle myself. Besides, aren't you always telling me I need to get out more, instead of working myself into the ground?" Mr. Hollis sighed, clearly unconvinced, but recognizing the stubborn determination in her voice. "Just be careful," he warned again. "Please." Elena nodded, though privately, she felt a strange mixture of anticipation and unease settling in her stomach. Whatever secrets Damon Cole and his family were hiding, she intended to uncover them, refusing to let fear or intimidation dictate her choices any longer. That evening, walking home once more beneath the dim glow of streetlights, Elena found herself replaying their conversation over and over, trying to understand the strange shift in Damon's demeanor, the genuine curiosity replacing his earlier arrogance. Something about him remained deeply unsettling, and yet undeniably fascinating. As she passed the edge of town again, she paused instinctively, staring up toward the distant lights of the Blackwood estate. This time, she didn't hear the strange growling sound from before, but the unsettling feeling remained, a quiet certainty that she was standing at the edge of something far bigger and more dangerous than she could possibly imagine. Friday couldn't come soon enough, and yet, as Elena continued her walk home, she couldn't shake the persistent whisper of doubt in the back of her mind, wondering if agreeing to dinner with Damon Cole had been the bravest decision she'd ever made, or the most reckless mistake of her entire life. Either way, there was no turning back now, and despite every warning, despite every instinct urging caution, Elena found herself looking forward to Friday evening, with an anticipation she hadn't felt in longer than she cared to admit. Alpha King Magnus Blackwood stood at the tall window of his study, watching the sun sink behind the hills that surrounded his estate. The room around him was dim, lit only by a single lamp on his desk, papers scattered across the surface detailing pack matters that demanded his attention. But his mind was elsewhere, fixed on a report delivered to him only hours earlier. His beta, Damon Cole, had been seen twice at the same diner in town, spending time with a human waitress. Magnus turned as the door opened, and Damon entered, his expression carefully neutral, though Magnus could read the slight tension in his shoulders, the subtle sign of someone bracing for confrontation. "You wanted to see me," Damon said, closing the door behind him. "I heard you've been spending time with a human," Magnus said, his voice calm, but carrying an unmistakable weight of authority. "Twice, apparently, in the same week." Damon's jaw tightened slightly, though he kept his tone even. "Her name is Elena, and yes, I've spoken with her a few times." "Spoken with her?" Magnus repeated, arching an eyebrow. "Is that what we're calling it now?" "It's nothing serious," Damon said, though something in his voice suggested otherwise, even to his own ears. Magnus studied his beta for a long moment, the weight of years of leadership evident in his sharp gaze. "You understand the position you hold, Damon. As my beta, your choices reflect on the entire pack, especially now, with tensions rising against the Ashford pack. We cannot afford distractions, particularly ones involving humans." "I'm aware of the tensions," Damon said, a hint of frustration creeping into his tone. "But Elena has nothing to do with pack business." "Doesn't she?" Magnus asked pointedly. "You've revealed enough about our world to satisfy her curiosity, according to what I've heard. That alone puts her in a dangerous position, whether you intended it or not." Damon's expression faltered slightly, guilt flickering behind his gray eyes before he masked it once more. "I was careful. She doesn't know everything." "Careful isn't the same as safe," Magnus said, his voice hardening. "The Ashford pack has spies everywhere, Damon. If they discover you've grown attached to a human, they will use her against you without hesitation. Is that a risk you're prepared to accept?" The question hung heavily in the air, and Damon remained silent for a long moment, clearly wrestling with an answer he didn't yet have. "I'll handle it," he finally said, though his tone lacked full conviction. Magnus studied him a moment longer before sighing, some of the tension easing from his shoulders. "I'm not ordering you to end things with her, Damon. I trust your judgment, to a point. But I want eyes on that diner, and on the girl herself. If there's even a hint of danger, I need to know immediately." Damon's eyes narrowed slightly at the mention of surveillance, though he understood the necessity behind it. "Fine," he said reluctantly. "But keep it discreet. I don't want her frightened unnecessarily." "Agreed," Magnus said, turning back toward the window, signaling the conversation was drawing to a close. "Just remember, Damon, our world is not kind to outsiders who wander too close to it. Be certain you're prepared for whatever consequences may follow." Damon nodded once, though his mind was already elsewhere, thoughts drifting back to sharp brown eyes and a stubborn refusal to be intimidated, qualities that had somehow captured his attention more thoroughly than he cared to admit. He left the study, walking down the long hallway toward his own quarters, passing several pack members along the way who offered respectful nods, though a few carried curious glances, clearly aware of the rumors circulating about their beta and the human waitress. Later that evening, Damon found himself standing outside the pack's training grounds, watching a group of young wolves practicing combat drills under the supervision of senior pack members. The rhythmic sound of movement, the occasional low growl of exertion, normally settled his mind, grounding him in the familiar rhythm of pack life. Tonight, however, his thoughts remained elsewhere. "You're distracted," a voice said beside him, and Damon turned to find Ronan, his closest friend and fellow pack warrior, watching him with knowing amusement. "I'm fine," Damon replied automatically. "Sure you are," Ronan said, chuckling. "Word travels fast, you know. Everyone's talking about the human waitress who put you in your place." Damon shot him a sharp look. "It's not what people think." "Isn't it?" Ronan asked, raising an eyebrow. "I've known you for years, Damon. I've never seen you this distracted over anyone, human or otherwise." Damon sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's different, Ronan. She's not afraid of me, not afraid of any of this." "Maybe she should be," Ronan said, his tone shifting slightly, more serious now. "You know how dangerous this could become, especially with the Ashford pack testing our boundaries every chance they get. I'm aware, Damon said, frustration evident in his voice. Magnus already reminded me. Ronan studied his friend for a long moment, concern replacing his earlier amusement. Just be careful, Damon. I'd hate to see anyone get hurt because of this, especially you. Damon nodded, though the warning did little to ease the restless tension coiling tightly within him. He turned to walk away, but Ronan's voice stopped him once more. For what it's worth, his friend added, I hope she's worth the risk. Damon didn't respond, continuing toward his quarters in silence, thoughts consumed entirely by the strange, unexpected pull he felt toward Elena Ross, a human waitress who had somehow managed to challenge everything he thought he understood about his own world, and his place within it. Meanwhile, across town, Elena spent the following days preparing herself, both mentally and physically, for the upcoming dinner with Damon. She told herself repeatedly that it meant nothing, simply an opportunity to satisfy her curiosity about the mysterious Blackwood family and the strange rumors surrounding them. Yet despite her efforts to remain indifferent, a persistent flutter of anticipation refused to fade entirely. She spent her limited free time researching quietly online, though details about the Blackwood family remained frustratingly vague, mostly limited to their reputation as wealthy landowners with significant influence throughout the region. Nothing concrete explained the whispered fears Mr. Hollis and others in town seemed to carry. On Thursday evening, Elena visited her mother's bedside, finding her resting comfortably after a difficult day. She sat beside her, gently smoothing the blankets, offering quiet reassurance, despite the persistent worry gnawing at her own thoughts. You seem distracted lately, her mother observed weakly, studying Elena's expression carefully. Is everything all right at work? Work's fine, Elena assured her, forcing a reassuring smile. Just tired, that's all. Her mother studied her a moment longer, clearly unconvinced but too exhausted to press further. Take care of yourself, Elena. You work too hard. I have to, Elena replied softly, squeezing her mother's hand gently. But don't worry about me. Everything's going to be fine. She left her mother's room shortly after, retreating to her own space, thoughts once again drifting toward Friday evening, toward gray eyes, and a mysterious world she was only beginning to understand. Despite every warning, despite every reasonable doubt urging caution, Elena found herself increasingly drawn toward uncovering whatever secrets Damon Cole and his family were so carefully guarding. Whatever waited for her Friday evening, she intended to face it directly, refusing to let fear or uncertainty dictate her choices, exactly as she always had. Friday evening arrived faster than Elena expected, and by the time her shift ended at 6, she barely had enough time to rush home, change into the one nice dress she owned, and make her way to the small restaurant Damon had chosen at the edge of town. It was quiet, tucked between older buildings, warm lighting spilling through tall windows onto the sidewalk outside. Damon was already waiting when she arrived, standing near the entrance in a simple dark shirt, looking far less imposing than he had at the diner days before. He smiled when he saw her approaching, a genuine expression that caught Elena slightly off guard. You came, he said, sounding almost relieved. I said I would, Elena replied, crossing her arms defensively despite the warmth in his greeting. Doesn't mean I'm not still suspicious of your intentions. Fair enough, Damon said, opening the door for her. Shall we? They were seated at a table near the back, away from the other diners, though Elena noticed several curious glances directed their way as they walked through the restaurant. Clearly, Damon Cole was well known in town, his presence drawing quiet attention from nearly everyone around them. People seem to know you, Elena observed once they were settled. My family's fairly prominent around here, Damon said carefully, avoiding specifics. That's an understatement, Elena replied dryly. Everyone I talk to seems terrified of your family, yet no one can actually explain why. Damon's expression grew serious, some of his earlier confidence fading. It's complicated, Elena. There are things about my family, about the world I come from, that most people simply aren't prepared to understand. Try me, Elena challenged, leaning forward slightly. You promised answers, remember? Damon studied her for a long moment, clearly weighing exactly how much truth to reveal. My family holds significant influence throughout this region, he began cautiously. Influence that comes with certain responsibilities, certain dangers most people never see. Dangers like what? Elena pressed. Rival families, Damon said carefully. Competing interests. Situations that sometimes become dangerous, even violent. Elena frowned, sensing he was deliberately vague, avoiding specifics, despite his earlier promise. That's not exactly a full explanation. It's the truth, just simplified, Damon said. Trust me, Elena, the full explanation isn't something easily accepted, especially not on a first dinner. Their conversation shifted after that, moving toward lighter topics. Elena sharing stories about her mother, her childhood, small details about her life that Damon listened to with genuine interest, occasionally sharing fragments of his own past in return. Despite her initial reservations, Elena found herself relaxing gradually, the tension from their earlier encounters fading into something unexpectedly comfortable. Their dinner continued pleasantly, laughter replacing suspicion more than once, and by the time dessert arrived, Elena had almost forgotten the strange warnings and mysterious rumors surrounding the man sitting across from her. That peaceful moment shattered abruptly when the restaurant door burst open, several men rushing inside, faces tense with urgency. Damon's entire demeanor shifted instantly, his relaxed posture disappearing, replaced by sharp alertness Elena hadn't witnessed before. "Damon," one of the men called urgently. "We need you outside, now. It's the Ashford pack. They're attacking near the market district." Elena watched, confused and increasingly alarmed, as Damon rose quickly from the table, his expression hardening into something unfamiliar and unsettling. "Stay here," he told her firmly, already moving toward the door. "What's happening?" Elena demanded, rising as well, refusing to be left in the dark. "It's dangerous, Elena. Please, just stay inside," Damon insisted, though Elena could see genuine worry flickering behind his authoritative tone. But Elena had never been one to sit quietly while chaos unfolded nearby, and despite Damon's warning, she followed closely behind him and his companions, stepping outside into the chaotic scene unfolding on the street. Shouts echoed through the night air, followed by sounds she couldn't immediately identify, sharp and unsettling. The market district, only a few blocks away, glowed unnaturally, flickering light suggesting a fire or explosion of some kind. Panicked residents rushed past them, fleeing the chaos, while Damon and his companions moved swiftly toward the danger instead of away from it. Elena hesitated only briefly before following, her heart pounding as she rounded the corner into the market district, immediately freezing at the sight before her. Flames licked at the side of a building, and amidst the chaos, she saw men moving with impossible speed and strength, engaged in fierce combat against attackers who seemed equally unnatural. Before Elena could fully process what she was witnessing, one of the attackers broke free from the chaos, charging directly toward her, features twisted in an expression of pure aggression. She stumbled backward, fear finally catching up with her, but before the attacker reached her, Damon intercepted him swiftly, his own transformation happening so fast Elena barely registered it. One moment, Damon stood before her, human and familiar. The next, a large wolf, dark and powerful, moved with terrifying speed and grace, meeting the attacker head-on. Elena gasped, stumbling further backward, shock and disbelief flooding through her all at once. The fight lasted only moments, though it felt like an eternity to Elena, frozen in place, watching creatures she had never believed existed clash violently amidst the flickering flames and chaotic shouts surrounding them. Eventually, the attackers retreated, disappearing into the darkness beyond the market district, leaving behind scattered debris and a tense, uneasy silence. Damon shifted back to his human form moments later, breathing heavily, immediately turning his attention toward Elena, concern evident despite the adrenaline still coursing visibly through him. "Elena," he said carefully, approaching slowly. "Are you hurt?" Elena stared at him, speechless, her mind struggling to reconcile everything she had just witnessed. "You're a wolf," she finally managed weakly. "You're actually a wolf." "Let me explain," Damon said gently, though his tone carried genuine worry. "Explain?" Elena repeated, disbelief shifting rapidly toward anger. "You could have told me this before nearly getting me killed." "I didn't know this would happen," Damon insisted, though guilt flickered clearly across his expression. "I never intended to put you in danger." "Well, congratulations," Elena snapped, adrenaline and fear fueling her sharp words. "You've succeeded regardless." Damon reached toward her gently, though Elena flinched back instinctively, still processing the shocking revelation. Elena, please, let me explain everything. But I promise, you're safe now. Safe? Elena repeated incredulously. How exactly am I supposed to feel safe after what I just witnessed? Before Damon could respond further, Ronan approached quickly, his expression grim. We need to move, Damon. The Ashford pack could return, and we're too exposed here. Damon nodded reluctantly, turning back toward Elena, his gray eyes pleading silently for understanding she wasn't yet ready to offer. Please, Elena, let me get you somewhere safe, and I promise, I'll explain everything. Elena hesitated, torn between overwhelming fear and undeniable curiosity, finally nodding stiffly, allowing Damon to guide her carefully away from the chaotic scene, though her mind raced furiously, struggling desperately to comprehend the impossible reality she had just witnessed firsthand. Whatever she had expected from tonight's dinner, nothing could have prepared her for the truth now unfolding before her. A truth that had irrevocably shattered everything she believed she understood about the world around her, and about the mysterious, dangerous man who had somehow become an undeniable part of it. Damon led Elena to a small guest house on the outskirts of the Blackwood estate, away from the main mansion, a modest but comfortable building surrounded by tall trees that swayed gently in the night breeze. Elena sat stiffly on the edge of a couch, arms wrapped tightly around herself, still trying to process everything she had witnessed only an hour before. Damon knelt in front of her, careful to keep a respectful distance, his expression a mixture of concern and guilt. I know this is a lot to take in, he said quietly. A lot? Elena repeated, a slightly hysterical edge creeping into her voice. You turned into a wolf, Damon. An actual wolf. That's not exactly something you casually explain away. You're right, Damon admitted. I should have told you sooner, before things got dangerous. I'm sorry. Elena studied him carefully, searching his face for any sign of deception, though she found only sincerity and quiet worry. Start from the beginning, she said finally. Tell me everything. Damon nodded, taking a seat across from her, choosing his words carefully. My family, the Blackwoods, we're not entirely human. We're part of an ancient line of shifters, people capable of transforming into wolves. My father, Magnus, leads our pack as Alpha King, and I serve as his beta, second in command. Elena absorbed this information slowly, her scientific mind struggling against the impossibility of it all, even as memory of what she'd witnessed confirmed every word. And the attack tonight, that was another pack, wasn't it? The Ashford pack you mentioned before? Yes, Damon confirmed. We've had tensions with them for years, disputes over territory, resources, influence throughout the region. Tonight's attack was more aggressive than usual, targeting businesses connected to our family, likely as a warning or provocation. And I got caught right in the middle of it, Elena said, shaking her head in disbelief. Because I agreed to have dinner with you. Guilt flashed clearly across Damon's face. I never meant to put you in danger, Elena. I promise. If I had known the situation would escalate tonight, I never would have suggested dinner in a public place. Elena studied him for a long moment, anger slowly giving way to cautious curiosity. Why me, though? Out of everyone you could have possibly pursued, why choose someone completely outside your world? Damon hesitated, clearly considering his answer carefully. There's something about your strength, your refusal to back down, even from someone like me, that drew me in unexpectedly. Well, congratulations, Elena said dryly, though some of the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. You've successfully complicated my life beyond anything I ever imagined possible. A small, relieved smile tugged at Damon's lips. I suppose that's fair. They sat quietly for a moment, the tension between them slowly easing into something more comfortable, though the weight of tonight's revelations remained heavy in the air. What happens now? Elena finally asked. Now that I know the truth, am I in danger simply by knowing? Damon's expression grew serious once more. Possibly, he admitted honestly. The Ashford pack might see your connection to me as an opportunity, a way to strike against my family indirectly. Elena's stomach tightened uneasily at the thought, though she refused to let fear consume her entirely. So what do we do? I'll ensure you're protected, Damon said firmly. I won't let anything happen to you, Elena. That's a promise. I don't need a protector, Elena said sharply, old instincts of independence flaring instinctively. I can take care of myself. I know you can, Damon said gently, surprising her with his understanding tone. But allow me this much, at least. Let me help keep you safe, especially now that you're unfortunately involved in matters beyond your control. Elena hesitated, torn between her fierce independence and the practical reality of her newfound vulnerability. Finally, reluctantly, she nodded. Fine. But I'm not going to just sit back and let you handle everything without my input. Damon's smile widened slightly, genuine warmth in his gray eyes. I wouldn't expect anything less. Over the following days, Damon insisted on walking Elena home after each shift, a decision she reluctantly accepted, given the circumstances. Their walks became a strange blend of cautious tension and growing familiarity, Damon gradually revealing more about pack hierarchy, the responsibilities of his role as beta, and the delicate political tensions between rival packs throughout the region. Elena listened carefully, absorbing every detail, her curiosity slowly overtaking her initial fear, though skepticism about Damon's true intentions remained firmly intact. You still haven't explained why your father allows any of this, Elena said one evening, as they walked along the quiet streets toward her home. Surely, as Alpha King, he doesn't approve of you spending time with someone outside your world. Damon's expression tightened slightly. He's cautious, understandably so, but he trusts my judgment, to an extent. To an extent, Elena repeated skeptically, meaning he doesn't actually approve. He's concerned about the risks, Damon admitted, especially given the current tensions with Ashford. Elena considered this for a moment. Curiosity piqued further. What exactly happens if the Ashford pack discovers your interest in me? What's the worst-case scenario? Damon's jaw tightened, clearly reluctant to answer honestly. They could use you against me, Elena, as leverage, or worse. The blunt honesty sent a chill down Elena's spine, though she refused to let it show outwardly. And yet you continue walking me home each night, despite that risk. I couldn't stop myself if I tried, Damon admitted quietly, surprising her with his candor. Elena studied him carefully, sensing genuine vulnerability beneath his usual confident exterior. Despite every rational reason to distance herself from the danger and complexity surrounding Damon Cole, she found herself increasingly drawn toward him, toward the strange, dangerous, yet undeniably fascinating world he represented. I suppose, Elena said finally, choosing her words carefully, that makes two of us. Damon's gray eyes softened, something unspoken passing between them as they continued walking silently toward her home. The tension between caution and growing attraction becoming increasingly difficult for either of them to ignore. As they reached her doorstep, Damon paused, studying her carefully. Thank you, he said quietly, for not running away from all of this. Elena offered a small, genuine smile. I've never been particularly good at running away from anything, Damon. Might as well stick around and see how this crazy story unfolds. Damon chuckled softly, the sound warm and genuine. Good night, Elena. Good night, Damon, Elena replied softly, watching him disappear into the darkness before finally stepping inside, her mind racing with countless unanswered questions, yet strangely at peace with the uncertain path she now found herself walking. Whatever challenges awaited her in the days ahead, Elena felt oddly confident that she would face them head-on, refusing to let fear or uncertainty dictate her choices, exactly as she always had, even as she began to realize just how deeply she had already become entangled in Damon Cole's dangerous, complicated world. A week after the attack in the market district, Elena found herself sorting through old boxes in her mother's closet, searching for extra blankets as the autumn nights grew colder. Her mother rested nearby, watching quietly from her bed, still weak, but alert enough to guide Elena toward the right storage containers. Not that one, her mother said softly, as Elena reached for a dusty box tucked into the back corner. That one belonged to your father. Elena paused, curiosity flickering immediately. Her father had passed away when she was young, and her mother rarely spoke of him, the subject always tinged with quiet sadness that Elena had learned not to press. Can I look through it? Elena asked carefully. Her mother hesitated, something unreadable crossing her tired features. I suppose it's time, she said finally. You're old enough now to understand certain things. Elena carried the box carefully to her mother's bedside, sitting on the edge of the bed, as she opened it slowly. Inside were old photographs, faded letters, and a few personal items she didn't immediately recognize. She lifted a photograph carefully, studying an image of her father standing beside several other men she didn't recognize, all gathered near a large, unfamiliar estate. "Mom," Elena said slowly, studying the photograph closer. "This estate. It looks like the Blackwood property." Her mother's expression grew tense, confirming Elena's suspicion. "Your father worked closely with the Blackwood family many years ago," she admitted quietly. "Before you were born." Elena's heart raced, pieces of a hidden past suddenly aligning unexpectedly. "What kind of work?" Her mother sighed heavily, clearly conflicted about revealing long-buried secrets. "Your father was a mediator, of sorts. Someone trusted enough to help maintain peace between rival families in this region." "Rival families like the Ashford pack?" Elena asked carefully, watching her mother's reaction closely. Her mother's eyes widened slightly, surprised by Elena's specific knowledge. "You already know about them?" "I know more than you might expect," Elena admitted cautiously. "But please, Mom, tell me about Dad. Why did he stop working with them?" Her mother's expression grew distant, sadness deepening the lines around her eyes. "There was an incident," she said quietly. "Your father tried to negotiate peace between the two packs, but something went terribly wrong. He was killed shortly afterward, in what the authorities called a tragic accident." Elena's breath caught, memories of her father's mysterious death suddenly taking on new, unsettling significance. "You think it wasn't really an accident, do you?" Her mother hesitated, clearly torn between protecting her daughter and finally revealing painful truths long suppressed. "I've always suspected there was more to his death than anyone admitted," she said softly. "But without proof, there was nothing I could do, except try to protect you from a dangerous world I hoped you'd never have to know about." Elena sat quietly, absorbing this new information carefully, her mind racing through implications she hadn't previously considered. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I wanted to protect you," her mother said gently, reaching for Elena's hand. "I hoped you'd never have reason to learn the truth. But clearly, fate has other plans." Elena squeezed her mother's hand gently, comforting reassurance passing silently between them. "I need to know more, Mom. If Dad's death is connected to the Blackwood and Ashford conflict, I have to understand exactly what happened." Her mother studied her carefully, clearly recognizing the same stubborn determination that had defined Elena's entire life. "Be careful, Elena. Whatever you uncover, please, promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," Elena said softly, though privately, she wondered exactly what dangerous truths awaited her, now that she had unknowingly stumbled directly into the heart of her father's mysterious past. That evening, when Damon arrived to walk her home from her shift, Elena immediately shared the discovery, watching carefully for his reaction. Damon listened intently, his expression growing increasingly serious as she explained her father's connection to the Blackwood family. "Your father's name," Damon said slowly, "was it William Ross?" Elena's breath caught sharply. "How do you know that?" Damon's expression grew troubled. "My father has spoken of him before. Briefly. William Ross was respected among our people, trusted deeply for his fairness and diplomacy." "Do you know what really happened to him?" Elena asked urgently. "My mother thinks his death wasn't an accident." Damon hesitated, clearly uncertain how much to reveal. "I don't know all the details myself, Elena. I was young when it happened, but I can speak with my father, if you'd like. Perhaps he knows more." Elena nodded firmly. "I need answers, Damon. If my father's death is connected to this conflict, I deserve to know the truth." Damon studied her carefully, admiration evident in his gaze despite the seriousness of their conversation. "I'll arrange a meeting with my father," he promised. "But Elena, please understand, whatever answers we uncover, they might complicate things further, possibly even endanger you more directly." "I'm already involved," Elena said firmly. "I'd rather understand the danger fully than remain blindly ignorant." Damon nodded slowly, respect clear in his expression. "Very well. I'll speak with him tomorrow." They continued walking, in comfortable silence, Elena's mind racing through countless possibilities, memories of her father resurfacing unexpectedly, tinged now with new questions and unresolved suspicions. Despite the uncertainty ahead, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to uncover the truth about her father's past, regardless of the dangers it might reveal. As they reached her home once more, Damon paused thoughtfully. "Elena, your father's legacy, if what my father says is true, could mean significant things for your own place within our world." "What do you mean?" Elena asked, curiosity piqued further. "Alliances built through diplomacy often carry weight," even generations later, Damon explained carefully. If your father was as respected as my father suggests, you might hold more influence within pack politics than you realize. Elena absorbed this new possibility, uncertain how to feel about the sudden weight of unexpected legacy. I'm not sure I'm prepared for that kind of responsibility. You handled yourself well enough against me, Damon said gently, a small smile forming. I have every confidence you'll handle whatever comes next, just as capably. Elena managed a small, uncertain smile in return, grateful for his confidence despite her own uncertainty. Let's hope you're right. Damon nodded, offering a reassuring squeeze to her hand before turning to leave. Good night, Elena. I'll be in touch soon, with whatever answers my father provides. Good night, Damon, Elena replied softly, watching him disappear into the night once more, her mind racing with anticipation and uncertainty about the truths soon to be revealed. Truths that promised to reshape everything she thought she understood about her father, her past, and the dangerous, complicated world she now found herself irrevocably part of. 2 days later, Damon arrived at the diner earlier than usual, his expression serious as he approached the counter, where Elena was wiping down the surface after the morning rush. My father wants to meet you, he said without preamble. Tonight, at the estate. Elena's stomach twisted, with a mixture of anticipation and nerves. Did he say anything about my father? Only that he remembers him well, and that there are things better explained in person, Damon replied carefully. Elena, I should warn you, my father can come across as intimidating. He's not used to being questioned, especially by humans. Good thing I'm not most humans then, Elena said, forcing a confident smile, despite the nervous flutter in her chest. That evening, Damon picked her up in a sleek black car, driving them up a winding road toward the Blackwood estate, an imposing structure of dark stone and tall windows that seemed to loom over the surrounding hills. Elena's breath caught slightly as they approached, the sheer size and grandeur of the place far exceeding anything she had imagined. Inside, Damon led her through a series of elegant hallways until they reached a large study, where Magnus Blackwood stood waiting near a crackling fireplace. He was tall, imposing, with sharp eyes that studied Elena carefully the moment she entered, assessing her with an intensity that made her spine straighten instinctively. Miss Ross, Magnus said, his voice deep and commanding, please, have a seat. Elena sat carefully in the chair across from his desk, refusing to let her nervousness show outwardly. Thank you for seeing me, she said evenly. Magnus studied her a moment longer, before speaking again. You have your father's eyes, he said unexpectedly, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. William was a good man, fair, and remarkably brave, given the world he chose to involve himself in. Can you tell me what really happened to him? Elena asked directly, refusing to dance around the subject any longer. Magnus's expression grew serious, respect flickering briefly at her direct approach. Your father worked tirelessly to establish peace between our pack and the Ashford pack nearly 2 decades ago. He succeeded, temporarily, brokering an agreement that lasted several years. But something went wrong, Elena said quietly, already sensing the tragic direction of the story. The Ashford pack broke the agreement eventually, launching an attack that resulted in significant casualties on both sides. Magnus continued grimly. Your father was caught in the crossfire during a diplomatic meeting, meant to resolve the escalating tensions. His death was reported as accidental, though I've always suspected otherwise. Elena's hands tightened in her lap, anger and grief mixing painfully within her. You believe he was murdered. I believe the Ashford pack saw him as an obstacle to their ambitions, Magnus said carefully. Removing him allowed tensions to escalate exactly as they desired. Elena absorbed this information slowly, old wounds reopening painfully, though a new sense of purpose began forming steadily within her. Why are you telling me this now? Magnus studied her carefully, something calculating behind his sharp gaze. Because you deserve the truth, and because your father's legacy may prove valuable, given the current tensions we face once again with the Ashford pack. You want to use me, Elena said bluntly, refusing to mince words, just like they used my father. Magnus's expression flickered slightly, surprised by her directness. I want to offer you a choice, Miss Ross. Nothing more. You're free to walk away entirely, remain uninvolved in matters that don't concern you. Or, you can choose to honor your father's legacy, using whatever influence his memory still carries among certain factions to help maintain peace. Elena considered his words carefully, torn between resentment at being placed in such a precarious position and a genuine desire to understand and honor her father's legacy. "And if I refuse? Then you walk away, safely, and Damon will ensure no harm comes to you or your mother," Magnus said simply. Elena glanced briefly toward Damon, who remained silent throughout the exchange, his expression carefully neutral, though concern flickered briefly in his eyes. She turned back toward Magnus, drawing strength from her father's memory and her own natural defiance. "I won't be intimidated," Elena said firmly. "Not by you, and certainly not by the Ashford pack. If there's a way to honor my father's memory by helping prevent further violence, I want to be part of that effort." Magnus studied her for a long moment, something akin to genuine respect forming behind his calculating gaze. "Your father would be proud," he said finally. "Very well, Miss Ross. Welcome cautiously to matters far beyond your original expectations." Elena nodded firmly, though uncertainty remained clearly present beneath her outward confidence. As the meeting concluded, Damon guided her quietly out of the study, his expression thoughtful as they walked back toward the entrance. "You surprised him," Damon said quietly, once they were alone again. "That's not an easy thing to do." "I meant every word," Elena replied firmly. "I won't let my father's death be in vain." Damon studied her carefully, admiration clear in his gaze. "I believe you," he said softly. "And for what it's worth, I'll be right there beside you, whatever comes next." Elena managed a small, grateful smile, comforted slightly by his steady presence, amidst the overwhelming uncertainty surrounding her newfound path. "Thank you, Damon." As they stepped outside into the cool night air, Elena paused, glancing back toward the imposing Blackwood estate, the weight of her father's legacy settling heavily, yet purposefully upon her shoulders. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she felt strangely resolute, determined to honor her father's memory by facing danger head-on, exactly as he once had, refusing to back down from whatever confrontations awaited her in the uncertain days to come. Weeks passed, and Elena found herself increasingly involved in pack matters, attending occasional meetings alongside Damon, offering insight and steady composure that earned her cautious respect from several senior pack members. Despite the strange, dangerous world she had become part of, Elena adapted quickly, her natural confidence and sharp intelligence proving valuable, time and again. One evening, as Elena reviewed old documents from her father's collection alongside Damon, searching for clues about previous diplomatic agreements with the Ashford pack, Ronan burst into the room, his expression tense and urgent. "Damon, we have a problem," Ronan said quickly. "One of our own has been feeding information to the Ashford pack." Damon rose immediately, alarm evident in his expression. "Who?" "We're not certain yet," Ronan admitted, "but recent attacks have been too precise, too well-timed to be coincidental. Someone within our ranks is providing valuable intelligence." Elena felt a chill run through her, memories of the Market District attack resurfacing vividly. Could this explain what happened weeks ago when we were having dinner? "It's possible," Ronan admitted grimly. The timing was suspiciously convenient. Damon's jaw tightened with barely restrained anger. "We need to find out who's responsible, quickly, before more damage is done." Over the following days, Elena and Damon worked closely together, carefully reviewing pack records, cross-referencing recent incidents against internal schedules and known movements of senior pack members. Their partnership deepened steadily through shared purpose, playful banter gradually evolving into genuine camaraderie and trust. "You're surprisingly good at this," Damon commented one evening, watching Elena meticulously organize information into clear, logical patterns. "I told you," Elena replied, smiling slightly despite the seriousness of their task. "I'm full of surprises." Damon chuckled softly, appreciation clear in his gaze. "I'm starting to realize that." Their investigation eventually narrowed toward Victor Hale, a mid-ranking pack member with unusually frequent, unexplained absences, coinciding precisely with recent Ashford pack movements. Elena and Damon presented their findings carefully to Magnus, who listened gravely, authorizing immediate but discreet investigation into Victor's activities. That night, Damon led a small team to quietly observe Victor's movements, Elena insisting on accompanying them despite Damon's initial reluctance. "This isn't a game, Elena," Damon warned seriously. "If Victor truly is working with Ashford, this could become dangerous quickly." I'm aware, Elena replied firmly. But I want to see this through myself. My father would have done the same. Damon studied her carefully, respect and worry mingling in his expression, before finally nodding reluctantly. Stay close to me then. No unnecessary risks. They tracked Victor quietly through the shadowed streets near the town's outskirts, eventually observing him meeting secretly with an unfamiliar figure near an abandoned warehouse. Damon signaled his team to move carefully into position, preparing to confront the suspected traitor directly. As they approached, Victor noticed their presence immediately, panic flashing across his features before he attempted to flee. Damon and his team moved swiftly, cutting off his escape routes effectively, cornering him within moments. Victor, Damon said firmly, stepping forward, authority clear in his tone. Care to explain your meeting tonight? Victor's expression shifted rapidly, from panic to defiance. You don't understand the pressures I've faced, Damon. Ashford promised protection, resources, things our own pack failed to provide. So you betrayed us, Damon said coldly, disappointment evident beneath his controlled anger. Compromised our safety, put innocent lives at risk. Victor's shoulders slumped, resignation settling heavily upon him. I never intended for anyone to get hurt directly. I was simply trying to survive. Elena stepped forward cautiously, curiosity outweighing her lingering apprehension. You provided information about the attack weeks ago, didn't you? The one that endangered me directly. Victor's gaze flickered guiltily toward Elena, confirming her suspicion without words. Damon's anger flared visibly at the unspoken admission, though he maintained careful control, aware of Elena's steady presence beside him. You'll answer for this, Victor, Damon said firmly, gesturing for his team to secure the traitor. Before my father himself. As Victor was led away, Elena stood quietly beside Damon, processing the intense confrontation they had just witnessed. Do you think he'll face serious consequences? She asked carefully. Betrayal within the pack is taken very seriously, Damon said grimly. He'll likely be exiled, at the very least. Elena nodded, understanding the severity implied by his tone. At least now we know how Ashford gained their advantage. Thanks to you, Damon said, turning toward her with genuine admiration. Your insight helped uncover this before more damage could be done. Elena managed a tired but proud smile. We make a pretty good team, don't we? Damon's gaze softened considerably, warmth replacing his earlier tension. We do, he agreed quietly. More than I ever expected, honestly. They stood together silently for a moment, the weight of their shared victory settling comfortably between them. Their earlier animosity now completely transformed into genuine partnership and growing affection neither had fully anticipated. Thank you, Elena, Damon said softly, for trusting me with all of this, despite everything you've had to face. Thank you for trusting me in return, Elena replied gently, meeting his gaze steadily. I never expected any of this, but I'm glad you're the one standing beside me through it. Damon reached out carefully, taking her hand in his, a silent acknowledgement of the bond steadily deepening between them. Elena squeezed his hand reassuringly, comforted by the steady warmth and quiet strength radiating from him. Whatever challenges remained ahead, Elena felt confident, standing firmly beside Damon, that together they could face whatever dangers or uncertainties the future still held, their partnership growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame together. The exposure of Victor's betrayal should have brought relief, but instead, it triggered exactly the kind of retaliation Magnus had feared most. Within days, reports came flooding in of increased Ashford activity along the pack's borders, scouts spotted near sensitive locations, and an unmistakable sense of impending confrontation settling over the entire Blackwood territory. Damon called an emergency meeting, gathering senior pack members alongside Elena, who had by now earned a permanent seat at these discussions through her sharp instincts and unwavering composure under pressure. They know we've discovered their spy, Damon said grimly, addressing the assembled group. Which means they'll likely accelerate whatever plans they had, before we can adequately prepare. What do we know about their intentions? Elena asked, studying the map spread across the table, marked with recent sighting locations. Based on troop movements, Ronan said, pointing towards several marked areas, it looks like they're planning a direct assault, possibly targeting the estate itself. Magnus's expression hardened with grim determination. Then we prepare accordingly. Damon, coordinate our defenses. I want every available fighter positioned strategically before nightfall. As the meeting concluded and pack members dispersed to prepare, Damon pulled Elena aside, his expression tense with worry. I want you somewhere safe, Elena. Far from the estate, until this crisis passes. Elena shook her head firmly. I'm not running away, Damon. Not now. Not when we're this close to finally ending the threat that took my father's life. This isn't the same as investigating a traitor quietly, Damon said urgently. This is going to be violent, dangerous, in ways you haven't yet experienced firsthand. I understand the risk, Elena said steadily, meeting his gaze without flinching. But I refuse to hide while people I care about face danger without me. Damon studied her for a long moment, clearly torn between his instinct to protect her and his growing respect for her fierce independence. Stay close to me then, he finally relented. No unnecessary risks, understood? Understood, Elena agreed, though privately, she wasn't certain she could fully commit to that promise, given the circumstances rapidly unfolding around them. That night, the Ashford pack launched their assault exactly as predicted, waves of attackers descending upon the outer perimeter of the Blackwood estate. Elena watched from a secured position within the main house, tension coiling tightly as sounds of fierce combat echoed from beyond the walls. Suddenly, an unexpected commotion erupted nearby, and Elena turned just in time to see several Ashford fighters breaching the inner perimeter, clearly targeting the main house directly. Panic flared briefly, but Elena forced herself to remain calm, quickly recalling emergency protocols Damon had carefully taught her in preparation for exactly this scenario. She moved quickly toward a secure room, only to find her path blocked by an unfamiliar Ashford fighter, expression cold and calculating. You're the human, he said, sneering slightly. The one connected to their beta. Elena's heart raced, adrenaline surging through her veins as she quickly assessed her surroundings, searching desperately for any possible advantage. Memories of her father's old diplomatic notes, details about specific weaknesses within Ashford's leadership structure, surfaced unexpectedly in her mind. You're here because Damon cares about me, Elena said steadily, buying precious time as she edged carefully toward a nearby exit. But you should know, I'm not just some vulnerable bargaining chip. The fighter smirked, unimpressed by her defiance. Brave words, for someone so clearly outmatched. Before he could advance further, Elena recalled a specific detail from her father's notes, information about internal Ashford politics that might just save her life. Your alpha, Cassius, doesn't actually approve of this reckless assault, does he? He's been resisting aggressive tactics against Blackwood for months, hasn't he? The fighter hesitated, clearly caught off guard by her unexpected knowledge. How do you know that? Because my father spent years negotiating exactly these kinds of internal tensions, Elena said firmly, seizing the moment of hesitation to create distance between them. You're following orders from someone other than your true alpha, aren't you? Someone reckless enough to risk open war. The fighter's confidence wavered visibly, clearly troubled by her unexpected insight into internal Ashford conflicts. Before he could respond further, Damon burst into the room, quickly assessing the situation and moving decisively to neutralize the immediate threat, ensuring Elena's safety without unnecessary violence. Elena, Damon said urgently, relief evident despite the ongoing chaos surrounding them. Are you all right? I'm fine, Elena assured him quickly, though her hands trembled slightly from the adrenaline coursing through her. But Damon, I think I just discovered something important about the internal conflicts within Ashford leadership. Damon studied her carefully, admiration and concern mingling clearly in his expression. We'll discuss it once we're safe. Right now, we need to move. Together, they navigated carefully through the chaotic estate, eventually reaching a secure position where Magnus and other senior pack members were coordinating a strong defensive counterattack. Elena quickly relayed the crucial information she had gathered, details that proved instrumental in exploiting internal divisions within the Ashford ranks, ultimately turning the tide decisively in Blackwood's favor. By dawn, the attack had been successfully repelled, Ashford forces retreating in disarray, their assault ultimately unsuccessful, thanks in large part to Elena's quick thinking and steady resolve under pressure. As the chaos finally settled, Damon found Elena standing quietly near the estate's entrance, exhaustion and relief mingling clearly on her face. He approached carefully, gently placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did incredible work tonight, he said softly, admiration clear in his voice. You might have just saved us all. Elena managed a tired smile, meeting his gaze steadily. I told you, Damon, I'm not just some vulnerable outsider to be protected. I'm someone capable of standing beside you, facing danger head-on, exactly as an equal. Damon's expression softened considerably, genuine respect and affection shining clearly in his gray eyes. I've known that for a while now, Elena. I just hope you realize it too. Elena studied him carefully, warmth spreading through her despite the exhausting night they'd endured together. I think I'm finally starting to. Together, they stood quietly, watching the first rays of dawn break gently over the Blackwood estate. The immediate danger finally passed. Their bond deepened, irrevocably, through shared trials and mutual respect, ready now to face whatever challenges still remained ahead, together, as true equals. In the days following the failed Ashford assault, the Blackwood estate slowly returned to a steady rhythm, though the atmosphere carried a lingering sense of relief mixed with quiet triumph. Magnus called a formal gathering of the entire pack, senior members and younger wolves alike assembling within the great hall to hear his address. Elena stood near the back initially, uncertain of her place amidst the formal proceedings, though Damon quickly guided her toward the front, insisting she deserved recognition for her crucial role in the recent conflict. Magnus stepped forward, his commanding presence silencing the room instantly. Tonight, we stand victorious, against a threat that sought to destroy everything we've built, he began, his voice resonating clearly throughout the hall. But this victory would not have been possible without the courage and wisdom of someone many of you initially viewed with skepticism. He turned directly toward Elena, gesturing for her to step forward. Nervously, Elena moved beside him, aware of curious eyes studying her carefully from every corner of the room. Elena Ross, Magnus continued, daughter of William Ross, a man who once dedicated his life to establishing peace between rival packs. Tonight, Elena proved herself equally capable, using her father's legacy and her own remarkable courage to help secure our victory against Ashford. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembled crowd, respect evident in the expressions now turned toward Elena. She felt a swell of pride, mixed with humility, grateful for the acknowledgement after weeks of uncertainty and danger. From this day forward, Magnus declared firmly, Elena Ross will be recognized as a trusted ally of the Blackwood Pack, honoring the legacy her father once represented. The room erupted into applause, pack members nodding respectfully toward Elena, who stood slightly overwhelmed by the sudden warmth and acceptance from a community that had initially seemed so distant and intimidating. As the formal proceedings concluded, Damon approached Elena, his expression filled with pride and unmistakable affection. You did it, he said softly. You've truly become part of this pack now, exactly as I always believed you could. Elena smiled warmly, emotion swelling within her chest. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Damon. Your support, your trust, it meant everything. Damon reached out gently, taking her hand in his, the warmth between them undeniable now, free from doubt or hesitation. There's something else I need to say, he began, suddenly appearing nervous, an expression Elena had rarely witnessed from him before. What is it? Elena asked curiously, studying his uncharacteristically hesitant demeanor. I owe you an apology, Damon said quietly, for how we first met. For the way I treated you that night at the diner. I was arrogant, dismissive, and cruel, and you didn't deserve any of it. Elena studied him carefully, memories of their rocky beginnings surfacing vividly, tinged now with quiet amusement rather than lingering resentment. You really were terrible that first night, she teased gently, a playful smile tugging at her lips. Damon chuckled softly, relief evident in his expression at her light-hearted response. I know. And yet somehow, you still ended up here, standing beside me, despite everything. Somehow, Elena agreed softly, warmth spreading through her chest as she met his gaze steadily. Damon reached out gently, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his gray eyes softening considerably. I promise you, Elena, from this moment forward, you'll never have reason to doubt my respect and admiration for you again. Elena's smile widened, genuine happiness evident in her expression. Careful, Damon. Keep talking like that, and I might actually start believing you've changed. I have changed, Damon said earnestly, because of you. Elena studied him thoughtfully, recalling clearly the exact words he had once used to intimidate her, words she now repeated back to him playfully, a teasing glint clear in her eyes. "Mock me again," she said softly, echoing his own arrogant words from their very first encounter. "I dare you." Damon laughed warmly, genuine joy evident in the sound, entirely different from his earlier mocking tone. "Never again," he promised softly, pulling her gently closer. "You've more than earned my respect, Elena Ross, now and always." Elena leaned into his embrace, comforted by his warmth and steady presence, finally feeling secure and confident in the strange, dangerous, yet undeniably rewarding world she had bravely chosen to embrace. As they stood together, surrounded by newfound allies and quiet acceptance, Elena reflected on everything she had endured since that fateful night at the diner. From humiliation and fear, to danger and uncertainty, she had faced every challenge head-on, refusing to back down, exactly as her father once had. Now, standing confidently beside Damon, surrounded by a community that had come to respect and honor her courage, Elena felt genuine hope for the future, a future built upon mutual respect, equality, and unwavering strength. Whatever challenges still awaited them, whatever dangers might yet arise from the complicated, dangerous world she now called home, Elena knew she would face them fearlessly, standing firmly beside Damon, an equal partner in every sense, ready to build a future neither of them could have possibly imagined when their story first began. And as she glanced once more toward Damon, love and respect clear in her eyes, Elena smiled confidently, ready to embrace whatever adventures still awaited them both, together, as equals, exactly as fate had always intended.